In today's video, we're going to review the FLSUN S1, the fastest production printer on the market right now. But just because it prints fast, does it print well? That's the big question here. And I've had this printer for several months and honestly have been holding off making this review and desperately waiting for a few updates. And right out of the box, I was pretty impressed with it, but as I started sending files to it, my hopes started to fall apart a little bit. But we'll touch on all that later. Let's jump right into it. And before we jump into the video, FLSUN did send me this printer free of charge. They're not paying me to make this video, but I do have an affiliate link down in the description and in the comments if you want to purchase this printer. I do get a small kickback that way. So just full transparency, I did get this printer for free. They're not paying me to say anything. I can say whatever I want, good or bad. So at this point, I have a lot of 3D printers and I'm getting pretty picky on the ones I actually decided to take on. So I'm going to give you guys a quick overview of why I even decided to accept this 3D printer to review. All right, so this is the FLSUN S1. Very expensive printer, but look at some of these numbers here. Able to print at 1200 millimeters a second with acceleration of 40,000. That's twice as fast as pretty much any other production printer right now. Build volume is pretty large. Max flow 110, absolutely insane. Usually they overshoot these numbers, which I was kind of expecting, but still, them are some strong claims. And they claim they have AI, and it has a CPAP high pressure turbofan, which is pretty cool and unique. You need to cool prints fast to be able to print prints fast. And all these AI detection stuff. So like overall, like on paper, this thing is super impressive. All right, so setup with this printer and we'll go over the size as well. This thing is absolutely massive. Like I knew it would be big, but I don't think I realized how big it was gonna be. And setup was pretty easy. I actually made a separate unboxing video. It was the first video on this new channel we made just for reviews. And it was kind of a mess. Ow! Oh, it landed on my ankle. Ow! You can check that out. I'll tag it up here in the corner or something. But overall setup was easy, but moving it's rough. I had to get Jess to help me just because you just can't move it. I had it sitting over there on a different bench, and I had to get her to help me move it over here because it's just so big and awkward. They say it weighs about 100 pounds, but just because it's so big and bulky, it's just hard to even like bear hug it. It has handles on the side here, but they're pretty useless just because maybe off the floor you can pick it up, but good luck setting it on top of something. In a second here, I'll go grab a couple other printers just to show you the pure size of this thing, just to give you like a visual reference. Visually, I think it looks kind of cool. Like it has a glass door that I dropped on my ankle, hit the ground, didn't shatter, pretty impressive. Like both these doors are glass. The whole frame is metal. This is plastic. This is plastic, but overall it's built very well and I can see why it's so expensive. But at the same time, just because it looks good, does it print good? I think that's most of what we all care about. The display is very nice. I do really like the display. It's pretty like touch friendly and very clear and large, which is great. Let me grab a couple other printers just to show you the sheer size of this thing. Let me move my Batman attempts here. All right, so this has been like their big printer for a little bit now, like their latest printer prior to this one. This is the V400, which is a great printer. Ran great. I don't really have any issues with it. I honestly don't use it much just because it's so big and it doesn't fit on my racks. The same with this one. I just don't know where this one's gonna currently live in my shop or setup. I do have two of them big racks. I have one in my shop and then I have one in my house. And I don't know, I just don't know where that one's gonna live. But V400, so I expected it to be big based on just the sheer size of this one, but man, that thing's a whole new level big. So this is the Cheedy Q1 Pro, which I would say is an average size printer. I could probably stack two of them there. Let's get another printer and stack it and see if it's as tall as that one. And probably one of my more favorite printers, the Bambu P1S. So as you can see, this is where this printer is going to lose a lot of interest from people. I can stack two printers on top of each other and it still takes up less space than this printer here. Wow. Yeah, I think I proved my point. And this is kind of one of the other downsides of the Delta printers because like sure, this thing can print super fast, but would two printers printing at the same time outperform it? Maybe that's something we'll have to test later on. But for the price, I could buy essentially 3 of these and for sure 2 of these. So like it really depends what your needs are, but this just gives you a good idea of how large it is. All right, so first off, let's talk about a bunch of things I don't exactly like about this printer. First, I don't love this setup here. This is a dryer box, so you can go in here and turn on the settings to dry filament as it's printing, or just throw it in there. You don't gotta worry about a dry box. But when you load this in here, oh man, I gotta unload this. All right, so this is how you load and unload it. Not my favorite, but not the worst. So they did fix the, ooh, whoa. Whoa, that's new. Okay, time out. Time out. So I'll show you some footage quick. When I went to set up this printer, there was an update. So there's a few things like that I was not aware of. All right, so as I moved everything over here to set up this video and turn this machine on, there is an update. There is an update. Update. Okay, so I guess there's not an update. False alarm apparently. Ooh! I guess we'll just see what happens. It took several tries, but it ended up going. So hopefully they fixed a bunch of stuff in this latest update, because they just did a recent update and it was okay. I really didn't notice a whole lot of difference. They fixed a few things, but I don't know. So let me figure this out. All right, so and this is what's weird about reviewing 3D printers, especially this one, because it does have a lot of faults, which I'll continue to touch on. This kind of threw me for a loop. They rush these to market, and a lot of the things they can fix with updates. So I don't understand why these companies don't just test them longer or send them out to testers and then fix stuff and then send it out, versus kind of just blanket the market, people complain, and then they slowly start fixing things. So this being one of them. So I didn't love, where do I cut it? So this is one of the things I didn't like, as I was starting to mention. I actually got a couple clogs doing this. When you would unload it, it wouldn't purge anything. It would kind of just like retract it and then get a clog in here. So now they're having you cut this, which they didn't have you do before. So there's a tube up in here with just this little PTFE tube connector. Okay, so let's cut that. A little awkward, but I'd rather do this than get a clog. Okay, let's put this back together. Pull out the tube, cut off the leaking filament. Okay. This is PLA. So I'm assuming it's just going to purge this now, as it didn't do before. Again, I feel like that would have been an easy fix prior. So I did that, and it didn't purge that strip of filament. Oh, there it goes. Okay, I just had to do it twice apparently, which is kind of like the theme of this printer. All right. So this is a little awkward to get this in here. And also the filament detection thing is here, and if you don't cut this at a sharp angle, sometimes I just can't quite get it in there. See there, it's, oh, there it goes. And then you just kind of got to feed that in there, and then you just go through the load sequence. But don't love it, but it's fine, I guess. I just feel like this is all hollow in here. They could have just gave you a little bit more room to work in the feeding section here. In this last update, let me pull it up here, they actually increased the range of the Z offset value, which still didn't feel like enough. I don't know why it's so limited. I think it was 0.02 both ways, and then they moved it to 0.05 both ways. But there's still times where I'm getting inconsistencies where I would like to get a little more, which I did a first layer test on, I'll show you in a minute. And then another thing I noticed just researching for this video is you can't get parts online. You can't just go online and buy a hot end or a new build plate. There's nothing on their website. I don't know if I just didn't see it or what, but I'm assuming you can get parts through customer service. How long it'll take to get those, I don't know, but something worth mentioning. All right, so let's talk about slicers. There isn't a pre-made Orca slicer profile, which I like Orca. The FLSUN slicer's okay. I don't love it. It looks identical to like the Cheaty slicer or Prusa slicer or whatever they made that one off of, because every slicer is just made off a different slicer. I prefer Orca and the Bambu slicer, so I've been using the FLSUN slicer just because that's what they can do, and I've already been kind of having problems with this printer, so to make a profile in Orca just didn't seem like the best move, so I just stuck with the FLSUN slicer. And I have been sending all my files via Wi-Fi. I don't use the little flash drive or anything. I've had no problems there. You just click send and they go, no issues. And for updates, the first update I had to do manually with the USB drive, but the last two uploaded via the Wi-Fi, downloaded off the internet, and worked fine. The second one was a little weird, and I had to do it a couple times, but it eventually went. And one of the first things I noticed was the print profiles in there are not good at all. It works okay with their provided filament, but the problem with their filament is it's a high-speed PLA, and it's like $35 a roll. And I can get Sunlu filament for like $13, $14 a roll. So I just don't want to be blowing through $35 rolls if I don't have to. So let's just take a look at their slicer. If you come over here to their filament selection, we have the FLSUN S1 printer selected. And all these presets are just generic settings. Like, they don't have anything for their, it doesn't say anything about FLSUN high-speed filament. It's just generic PLA. So this just gives you the impression that you can just throw any PLA in here. And let's just look at these speeds. So max volumetric flow rate of 110. Your average printer, like the Bambus and that, are going to be between 12 and like 25 for this number here, which is just insane at 110, which is why the standard PLAs just kind of print so rough in this. Okay, let's just take a look at like TPU. Max volumetric flow rate of 3.8, which is the same as an average printer. Let me come over here to speed and 40 millimeters a second. You know, that's nothing insane. And then, you know, just generic ABS, max volumetric flow rate of 20, and then the speed 300, which is pretty much the same as the other printers. So I wish they would just spend a little more work in here getting these figured out, as they're just so basic, and I just feel like they didn't spend any time on making any of these remotely work or anything like that. So you can only print, cool, and melt plastic so fast before you're going to start having issues, which I was very concerned on how they were going to do that with most filaments. So there's a lot of high-speed PLAs out there now, but everything I've found with this printer that's not like a high-speed PLA doesn't print any faster than any of my other printers. So like ABS, PETG, all that stuff's essentially going to print the same. They do make high-flow PETG. I just kind of had problems with other filaments, so I didn't really bother playing with PETG in this printer, but they are starting to make high-flow filaments like PETG, and I did use a high-flow TPU in here, but again, it printed just as fast as my other printer. So if you're going to print high-speed stuff with this, you're going to have to use high-speed filaments, which mainly PLA, or you're really not getting the advantage of having this super fast printer. I just think that's something you really need to know, that unless they make these other high-flow filaments, you're going to be printing just as fast as everyone else and just have a massive printer. And then if we go under printer materials, the only materials that I can find that they sell are PLA. So they should offer other types of high-flow filaments to pair with their high-speed printers. And I just don't see any on here unless I'm just missing them. Because they do have the high-flow PLA that we showed earlier. That's $32 a roll, which is pretty expensive compared to other filaments. But yeah, they should at least have recommendations of filaments they recommend you use with this printer if they don't offer any themselves. So I mentioned the limited Z height, and the first layers on this it has good first layers, it's just they're kind of inconsistent. So for instance, I did a calibration. It was just a first layer on the whole thing, which it actually looks decent. There's a few weird spots, but I think it's just from my fingerprints and I didn't clean it well enough. So as you can see, overall it's relatively clean besides these spots. Over here it's a little too much squish, but overall I'm not mad about it. So I calibrated everything, I printed this, and then I went ahead and printed this, and I had to raise the Z height like 8 bumps just because it was way too much squish. So the first layers are fine, they're just inconsistent. Okay, so I printed these out of high flow PLA, actually warm so they're dirty. So I printed in here like so, and it took me multiple attempts to get these to print properly. They just would not stick. So you kind of gotta just do things multiple times with this printer to get it to actually like work properly. But I did get it, and they actually did print pretty decent. And then just here's more examples of the inconsistencies in the first layer, whether it's a flow issue or a Z-height issue. It's just hit or miss. Like that side looks fine, and then you can clearly see the lines in this one where it just doesn't have quite enough smoosh. And here you can see I need a little bit more smoosh, but yet I can't go any lower because the Z offset is limited to 0.05. So I'll just restart the same code and do another bed leveling, and it usually clears it up. But here you can see when I pulled these off, there's just clearly not enough smoosh, and I couldn't go any lower. As you can see, the lines and gaps between the layer lines. All right, so I mentioned that pretty much the only filament I've been able to print super fast was high-speed PLAs. And I pretty much stopped at ABS and TPU just because I wasn't getting the best results, and I just didn't want to mess with it anymore, being they didn't have any decent profiles on their slicer. So let's take a look at some of these prints and see how it printed. Okay, so this is printed. This is ABS, printed at just essentially normal speed. This took multiple attempts. I had to tune it a little bit. I had to crank the temp because this kept warping on the bottom here. And as you can see, we got some cracks. Overall, it looks decent. It's just cooling issues and cracking. This one's a little smaller, a little simpler print. And you can see it kind of has that delta texture on it, but overall it looks fine. All right, so I've been testing this FlashForge 5M Pro, and it's a $500 printer. You can get $500 on Amazon to your door. You can get 3 of these for the price of 1 of those. And let's see how this did. These are stock profiles. I didn't tweak anything. Okay, so this is black ABS. Pretty good, no warping, no cracking. Good first layer. This is the same exact roll of ABS as I used to print this one on the FLSUN. And overall, the quality looks decent, minus the cracking and the warping on the bottom. This one had no warping, stock profile. I didn't have to tweak anything. And there's 0 cracking. Same exact roll. Oh, that's the... So yeah, $500, $1,500. And this slide here is pretty much why I emphasize the ABS, because ABS can be pretty hard to print, and it just gives off the feeling that ABS is going to be easy to print with this printer. And it has a 350 Celsius nozzle temperature, which you can print hard to print filaments, but you know, how well do they print? Chamber temperature up to 50 degrees Celsius. It's not heated, so that just must be what it can hold up to. And then the 120 degrees Celsius hotbed, which I had to crank all the way up to get the ABS to stick to this, and I cleaned it a few times. And this is Creality high-speed PLA, which it looks okay. You can see here the first layer, just gaps not connecting. But yeah, I didn't tune this at all. This is just their stock profile settings. There you can see a little bit of the texture on it. All right, so this really likes round things, and you can see these printed pretty good. I did tune these a little bit, and you can see here I marked, and it was just changing different speed settings as it was printing. But so like straight on, it looks fine. But when you start looking at different angles, you can kind of see like that. It just has a unique texture to it, unlike other printers I've had. And then as I know it likes round things, as you can see here, nice and smooth. But then when you get on the straightaways, it was having issues here, which to me looked like a pressure advance issue, but I couldn't find anywhere to change them settings in the slicer. So it is what it is. So I tried to tweak these and slow it down, but actually, so I slowed it way down here, sped it up a little bit and realized it actually looked better. Slowed it down again, and then I sped it up and it got rid of all this. So it's assuming just a max flow or pressure advance issue, but this is just a poop shoot for the P1S. I just needed to print a new one and print quality here, but you can see all the areas that changed the speed. But like overall, it doesn't look bad. It's just got a bunch of just weird areas. And then here's a Deadpool I printed. Quality's decent. I used 3 layers, 3 shell layers, and you can still see that it has like that waviness, and some of the details are a little bit blurry. But overall, it doesn't look bad at all, and I printed it super fast. As you can see, the top layers are a little and no matter how much I slow it down, it kind of always has this like texture. And on some stuff, it kind of looks cool, and then other stuff, it's really noticeable. And you can see the overhangs here to actually look really good. And this is another file I printed, the Batman, the Caped Crusader, and you can see he just has that like wavy texture. Here it's only 2 shell walls, and you can see them top layers just kind of look a little iffy as well. But overall, the print, it looks fine. So this thing absolutely hates tree supports. It's just way too fast, I think. So first one, it just totally failed right away. This one, I think I had an EMI fail. I came back out here and it had like a clipper shutdown thing go on. But like you can see, the quality's not bad. And then this one, supports failed. There, some more supports failed. And I think this one might have been the EMI fail too. I don't remember. And I went through and checked my log, and it took 6 attempts to get this helmet. The supports kept failing. It was either knocking them off or they were breaking off the build plate. It had the clipper shut down on the longer prints, and then it would just kind of just seize up. I hope the updates fix this. Also try a few more longer prints to see what happens. So between failed supports and just clipper shutdowns, I was just getting pretty frustrated. I believe I had 3 total clipper shutdowns, 2 on the helmet and 1 on a different Batman. But it would essentially just go non-responsive, and I would have to kind of pry this out of there so it doesn't smash into it when I turn the machine back on. To get the final one to actually work, I had to slow the print down, and I slowed the tree support speeds in half. Like, I completely cut the speeds in half because they just were looking awful and continued to fail. I actually got this one to print, a little dusty. So the top layers don't look the best. There's also like a hole there. But if you were to sand and paint this, it's not that bad. I actually believe I removed the inner supports in this one as it appears in the bottom of the helmet. And very fast printers are very loud printers. I would not want to have this thing anywhere in my house where I'm directly living, nor would I want to have it like in my office where I'm working. It's just way too loud and almost just needs to like be in its own corner away from where I am. Like it's super loud. I would say like a shop vac. You turn a shop vac on and it's about that loud. Not quite that loud, but very loud. So I would not put this in your apartment or anything like that just based on the noise. It'll probably drive you nuts pretty fast. And I don't really know if there's much you can do about that.
You sure about that?
As it has the CPAP fan and it's just a very loud printer. I don't know, but very loud. And then just here's a clip of it running and speeding up, and just you can hear that fan just howling. Actual print time, nothing slowed down. It also has a load of AI features. I personally turned them all off because I was not having good luck with any of them. They just kept throwing errors to me and like detecting spaghetti that wasn't there, or just like doing nothing on the first layer. So I turned them all off. I haven't tested them with the latest update as I just did it, but I'm curious to see if they fixed any of that. I honestly don't have the highest hopes that the AI is working perfectly, but I'm curious to see. So a quick overview of print quality. This printer can print well. Like it can put out some pretty good prints in a fast time. But you can also lower the speed to get better prints. But it's just kind of like the whole point of the printer is like ultra fast printing. And I just wish they were a little more clear on the types of filaments you can throw into this thing, along with just better print profiles. You shouldn't have to tune every single filament for a $1,500 printer. And I was super excited about this printer. I'm still a little excited about it. I see the potential of where it could be. I just don't think it's there yet. It's hard for me to recommend this printer to a new consumer of 3D printers because this thing would absolutely kick your butt. Having to tune filaments and none of the profiles in the slicer work very well, and you're kind of locked into one slicer. It has a lot going for it, but it also has a lot they need to work on and update. Fortunately, I think they can fix a lot of the issues this thing has with updates, which is why I'm just going to keep waiting and hoping for updates. I really hope this latest one helps out with some things. I don't know what it does. I couldn't find any information on it online. Again, with the price of it at $1,500, that's just so expensive. At this point, I personally would rather buy a Bambu X1C with an AMS at roughly the same price than spend money on this and continue to troubleshoot this. And if I'm limited on all the different filaments I can use, it's kind of like, what's the point? I think this printer would be perfect for people that are into cosplay and printing large things out of PLA, especially if you're going to paint them, because you can just sand out any minor imperfections, and once you Bondo it and paint it and prime it and do all that, you're never going to see any issues. I do appreciate what FLSUN's doing with this printer and really pushing the envelope to see how far they could go, but I kind of think they overshot the speeds a little bit. Like, this acceleration and the speeds are just a little further, because I essentially slowed those down by a third. Granted, it's still way faster than the other printers, but I can get pretty much perfect prints out of a majority of the printers I have at this point. The Flash Forge prints beautiful, the Bambu Printers print beautiful, and they're just way cheaper. It's just hard to justify the price. If you just need speed, I think it's great. So overall, I think it's a very interesting printer. I just think it's not quite there yet, and it just feels quite rushed. I wish they would just wait on the releases, especially since they're not really competing with anyone except themselves, because there's not many other Delta printers out there. So just take your time and release a better product versus one that feels rushed for $1,500. But overall, I'm excited to see where this thing goes. But I think it's a very cool printer that just needs some updates and all new, and fix the slicer. Just that would have been such an easy fix. They could have figured out in like a week with a bunch of people. They could have easily went in there and made a couple different print profiles to make this thing a little more streamlined with other types of filaments. So yeah, let me know what you guys think of this printer down in the comments. I'm very interested to hear what you guys have to hear, as I was super excited right away and then kind of lost a little bit of the excitement for it, just as it was a little bit messy. But I think it's a very cool printer. Let me know what you think. We do have a Patreon if you guys want to support the channel, so check that out, and just thanks for watching the videos either way. Hope you all have a great day.